Fantasy is a genre that has been the biggest part of LGBTQIA plus history as a whole. Fantasy creatures, the themes in history, the fact that in most fantasy worlds, homophobia and racism is not prevalent or exists even. The fact there is a sort of safe space for queer folks to just leave the world of reality full of hate and bigotry and get into the world of love and love light and a place where they belong. But as as of recently, the amount of queer fantasy has been diminishing. The stories don't stand a chance against to build the world. Really explore what is going on. But heck, if they even get a chance to build the world in the first place, we will be lucky enough to even witness it. Now, the main question is why? Why are these wonderful, carefully written, heartfelt ideas being shot down and left at mercy? Well, let's see why. Netflix is a streaming platform famous for its original content made and preservation of movies shows shown on TV to OTT. It's one of the most streaming platform in the whole world. According to Google, as of the third quarter of the 2024, it has over 282 million paid subscribers. Specifically speaking, it has around 896.13 million subscribers in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. 84.8 million in the US and Canada, 52.6 million in Asia Pacific, and 49.18 million in Latin America. Needless to say, it is pretty famous. One thing I have an issue with is Netflix has a content issue that we have all noticed. For an example, shows like Riverdale, Emily in Paris, Fuller House do not get as much love as shows such as Stranger Things, Black Mirror, and End of the Fucking World. Yeah, I know they don't match like themes, but all I'm saying is these shows are a hit or a miss. Fantasy has always been a part of queer history. One of the most prominent examples of it is the phrase "friend of Dorothy." It was used by queer folks to identify each other. This was due to a quote from the book called Wizard of Oz, a story that has been written about and made into movies, and it's a very famous story within the queer community, where the main character, Dorothy, is said something by a character called Polychrome when he met her and her traveling companions. If you know the story, you know who they are. Anyways, Polychrome asked, "You have some queer friends, Dorothy," in which she says, "The queerness does not matter so long as they are friends." Now, to keep in mind, queer also means strange and weird, later used as a slur for homosexuals, after which even later reclaimed by homosexuals. Also, another reason why this phrase was used was because Dorothy was played by Judy Garland when the book was first made into the movie, who was known as a queer icon during that time. That this just goes to show how fantasy represents queerness in its own way. Now, if we want to talk about Wizard of Oz, the whole entire story is queer. Even the creators support the idea that it is queer, and mostly the fandom that follows this is queer. Hence, this story is such an important story for queer folk in and of itself. As we see, fantasy is not real. It is a make believe, and anything is possible. Therefore, queerness in fantasy media is usually portrayed in a nonchalant, casual way. There is a sort of acceptance that is pre-existent. There's pre-existent. Fantasy fantasy always follows a group of misfits which relates to queers since they have been outcasted there whole lives. There is a certain relatability between queer people and fantasy media. One of the reasons why queers love fantasy is because headcanons and having an alternate idea or fake character is not only accepted but even more encouraged. Even more encouraged. Fantasy and queerness have always worked together, and it is unfortunate how queer fantasy shows are now basically not being given a chance and after one season. Fantasy shows after one season don't survive on Netflix. We have way too many examples of this, such as the Dead Boy Detectives, I'm Not Okay with This, Julie and the Phantoms, Chaos and many more. These shows never get to flourish and be able to build their world. And that sucks because they deserve a chance. I miss the times. I miss the times. Look at me like sounding like a no, like, oh, back in my day. No, but I'm genuinely serious. The state of television and how long a show runs for is concerningly dropping low. If you have seen shows such as The Vampire Diaries, Doctor Who, Supernatural, and many more, they have more than one season. In fact, they have around 8 to 10 seasons minimum. But ever since OTT and online streaming became a thing, shows have started to have lesser seasons. A show doesn't have a big storyline or a lot of seasons. At least let it have more than one season. Most of the shows that got canceled wanted to have more than one season. Wanted to get their story across, which they didn't get the chance to do so. Which infuriates me as someone who wants to make a fantasy show or a movie one someday. Because if I can't even get to tell the story, what's the point of making one? Queer fantasy has been the only thing that has been accepting to the LGBTQIA plus community. There has been a lot of prejudice against them, and especially queer fantasy shows have been targeted so much recently. One of the shows that I can remember who lived for a longer time is like Shadowhunters that had almost 4 seasons. Well, the third season was half and half. There was also There was also Supernatural, which had a lot of seasons, despite being a queer show. I think Buffy the Vampire Slayer as well was a really big show back in the day. I think the main issue is that the television industry is getting shorter and shorter. People love web series now, and they don't realize the value of a show having, and therefore they only get few seasons, max to max 4. And I am so glad to say that I think there are some shows that will prevail this, such as Hotstopper, and which is a newer one which everybody is in love with. But it is disappointing that so many queer fantasy shows, specificity on the fantasy, is not being appreciated enough. And Netflix is doing its best to cancel all of them. No matter how big or how good the show will or is doing, they will cut them out, leave it, scrap it off, run it. And that is disappointing because queer fantasy creators are some of the most passionate creators that you will meet. Hobby Steele, who made Dead and Paranormal Park, after finally it was took up by Netflix, only survived for one season. And that really sucked because it really deserved more than one season. And it was canceled by Netflix, and Hamish Steele has been so vocal about this the whole time, and I really wish that there was a way to support these creators. Well, there are ways you can support these creators. Oh wait, I could do that as a logging. Okay. How do we support these creators? Well, these creators have a different way of making them, such as web comics or merch or whatever. There is a way to support them. Follow these creators and find out how you can support them. When Dead Boy Detectives was canceled, there was a really famous hashtag going around called hashtag Save Dead Boys Detectives. It was trending for like a few days on Twitter or X. But I am so mad at this whole situation because queer fantasy is one of my favorite genres. I am a fantasy fanatic and I love queer fantasy personally. It really sucks to see that a lot of queer media be shunned down as not viewable, as 18 plus, as not being child friendly, when it is very much child friendly. It's not a unchild friendly. It is not non-child friendly. And I just want to have this couch talk before for now because the thing about queer media is it has always been shunned down by the executives. Always. This is one of the biggest criticisms that I have about media in general is that queer media is not represented enough. And when then there is, people are mad about it. When there are shows such as like there are shows where there's even a slightest bit of queer representation. People are all up in arms and saying, "Oh my God! Oh, it's all about them now. How much will they do? What about us? What about us? What about us?" The cishet white people of the world. They keep doing that, and I have one question for them, and that is why? Why do you think that we are just coming in so many times? There have been so many straight, almost every single show has straight representation. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Every single show has straight representation, and that is not bad in itself, but it is also really important to point out that not everybody wants to see a straight represented show. Not everything revolves around straight people. I'm sorry. Okay, I love you straight people, but it's not about us. But in all seriousness, queer people deserve to have their representation, and we should talk about it because queer representation is one of the most important things that may be needed in this world, especially now seeing the conditions of LGBTQIA plus people in America, not other worlds where it still hasn't gone better, but at least in America and like some of the states, some of the world, there is really a lack of like respect for LGBTQIA plus people. And people usually just brush them off, being like, oh, whatever. It's like they don't think of it as a big deal. They don't think of it as a big deal. But no, it is. It is a big deal. There's like a there's like a straight majority in this world. A lot of people are straight. Well, almost everyone is straight except for like a small population that is queer and gay and LGBTQIA plus. And that is something that needs to be addressed because people don't realize how much straight people are the majority in this world. And quote unquote the queer population is growing in population. It's basically because back in the day queer people were not able to live. Literally, it was criminalized. People used to be killed for that shit. There were so many things restricting people from being queer. You could not be out and open being like, "Oh, I am queer, I'm gay, and I am proud." No, you could not do that ever. It was prohibited, literally. And now we've gone so far, but we are starting to go back again, and we cannot afford that. Support your local queer creators of queer shows if you want to. Watch a lot of queer shows, pirate them if you can, if you don't want to support Netflix. But I would say watch them on Netflix so that like Netflix will get the hint. But if you don't want to give them support, you can pirate them, of course. I would say try to support the creators in the ways you can. And yeah, that's it. have a request for Netflix. Please let shows have more than one season. Because people want to hear these stories. People want to invest, but they get deterred after doing so because they know they will be disappointed in the end. It will only make people not want to use your platform at all. If this becomes a pattern, and to the creators, if this becomes a pattern, and to the creators, please keep creating, because this world would be empty without these stories. Don't be disheartened, because no matter what your story is, someone is there to hear it. And it doesn't only apply to creators, but also people as well. Thanks for watching. See you.